Hello everyone, I'm live with my not so special guest, the Pope. Today we're going to be taking a look at some news, and specifically some of it revolves around the Pope, and I want to let you know that the title of this video is very sarcastic. This is something I would expect the Pope to say. Everyone's like, oh my goodness, this Pope is so progressive. But of course he isn't. It's just a facade, even though it seems like he is by some words he says. It's clear that the institution of the Catholic Church isn't going to change at all, which is, no surprise to me. But anyway, he is going to be joining us and watching in shame as we take a look at some of the news this week, and again, some of it involving the Pope and what he said basically against the LGBTQ community and things like that. So that's what we're going to be doing today, and I'm excited to be here with you guys. It's nice to see you. Let's get started. Oh, but before I do, bonus, I want to let you know that anyone who becomes a Patreon supporter or a channel member on YouTube will get their name tattooed permanently upon the Pope. So if you become a supporter on Patreon or on YouTube today, you get to be put into His Holiness. So as I was saying, everyone talks about, oh, how progressive this Pope is and everything like that. But if you take a look, recently, that has been utterly demolished. As we see, Pope Francis says priests cannot bless same-sex unions, dashing hopes of gay Catholics. Vatican bars gay union blessing, says God can't bless sin. So once again, they're calling, same-sex unions as being sinful and wrong and against the Creator's plan, which is just absolutely terrible, and a big attack on the LGBTQ community. So here you can see it says, Pope Francis has invited LGBT advocates to the Vatican. He's spoken warmly about the place of gay people in the church. He has called for national laws for same-sex civil unions. But Monday, Francis definitively signaled the limits to his reformist intentions, signing off on a Vatican decree that reaffirms old church teachings and bars priests from blessing same-sex unions. The pronouncement, issued at a time when some clerics were interested in performing such blessings, so some clerics wanted to bless same-sex unions, leans on the kind of language that LGBT Catholics have long found alienating, and they had hoped Francis might change. It says that same-sex unions are not ordered to the Creator's plan. It says acknowledging those unions is illicit. It says that God cannot bless sin. And the decree shows how Francis, rather than revolutionizing the church's stance towards gays, has taken a far more complicated approach, speaking in welcoming terms while maintaining the official teachings. And this is the main thing that I really want to talk about here, because this is the devious thing. On the face of it, they'll say really nice things and act like they're welcoming and opening, but then they will just maintain the old institutional ways of doing things. And this is how the world works across the board, even when it comes to the government and politics and things like this. They talk a lot about reform. They talk a lot about acceptance. They talk a lot about, rights for African Americans, for example, and for women, and trying to, help workers make better pay and all these sorts of things. They talk and talk and talk, but then they don't do anything. But anyway, that's sort of getting off topic. What I'm saying is that it's all talk. And here we can see this clearly, and people, and that's why it always annoys me when people talk about how progressive this Pope is, because it's not at all. It's just words, and behind the scenes, everything always stays the same. And like I said, I grew up in a very religious household, and often the churches I would go to, it's very, very similar. Like, they would be very welcoming of the LGBT community, as in, oh yes, come on in, join our service. and, will talk to you and be nice to you. But of course, even though they're acting real nice, they still think that they're full of sin, that they're going to hell, that what they're doing is wrong. And fundamentally, it's just a ploy to try and change them. Like, they're just being nice to try and pull them in so that they can just try and change them and get rid of the sin. And it's just really gross. So that's why, it always really annoys me when, people talk about how progressive the Pope is or anything like this, or they talk about, oh, but they're so nice to me when I go to church. Guys, it's just words. It's words, but then behind the scenes and in the institutions and all this, there's nothing progressive about it. So it's really annoying. And here you can see that see here again, it says Catholic teaching says that marriage is a lifelong union between a man and a woman, is part of God's plan, and is intended for the sake of creating new life. So not only is marriage just between a man and a woman, but it's also strictly for the sake of childbirth, which is again ridiculous. Since gay unions are intended to be a part of that plan, they can't be blessed by the church, the document said. God does not and cannot bless sin. So, and even further down here, we have another quote by someone who says, saying that homosexual practices, openly living sexuality is a sin, takes us back 200 years and promotes hate speech that unfortunately in Latin America and Europe is on the rise. So, this is really damaging, this kind of thing. And again, I'm reading from this article here, and, as Hyperions, as trying to build a new world and a new humanity, we are against this kind of discrimination. Sin is a lie. There is no sin. There's no such thing as sin. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with a person's sexuality, whether that's expressed between a man and a woman, or a man and a man, or a man and a man and a man and a man, or a man and a woman and a woman and a man, or not. Again, I'm non-binary, so even if you don't identify as just who cares? Like, it's so stupid. Just let people live and let people love. And all this stuff is extremely harmful. And, this is exactly why this is the stuff that I'm really passionate about, and the stuff that I really want to talk about is because, I witnessed this stuff firsthand, and people think that mainstream religion is benign, and they think it's so welcoming and open, but it really, really isn't. It has all these discrimination and legislation, all these rules that are extremely hateful, and it's not okay, and it really is gross for me to see stuff like this, and people don't realize how bad it really is. And that's the whole point of my channel. I mean, not the whole point of my channel. The whole point of what we're doing here is creating a new humanity and a new earth, but a big part of that is that I want to raise awareness for the damage that religion causes, because religion is one of the big issues of the world. Mainstream religion, capitalism, the oligarchy, the rich elite, and scientific materialism. These are sort of the big three that are working hand in hand to limit you and limit the world. And as we can see, people are just trying to be free to live and love. But because of this idea of there being a creator God in the sky that has deemed it sinful, now people are being limited in actualizing themselves and expressing their love. And do you see how these limitations are at work in limiting people's actualization as individuals, and their ability to express themselves, and their ability to experience love with others? And this is why, mainstream religion, in one of many ways, is an affront to the human experience, in that we are here. The purpose of Earth, the purpose of the holos, the purpose of physical incarnation is to self-actualize and experience one another. And that is completely and totally limited. And that's one reason, one of many, that we are supportive of things like the LGBT community and all that, because look, I am a part of this. We are all just here to express, grow, learn, know, understand, love, live. And these are things that should be obvious. These are things that should be understood universally, ubiquitously. But unfortunately, because of old, archaic ideas that have been around for thousands of years, humans can't be who they are and become what they have the potential to be, which is just a, absolutely terrible thing. Sean says, why do people think love should be monogamous? Yeah, that's correct. It doesn't need to be. Whether you're monogamous or polyamorous, it's all valid. Love doesn't need to be monogamous. If that's how you want to choose to spend your time and make a commitment that way, that's totally fine. That's your choice. But it's not necessary. Love can be monogamous. Love can be polyamorous. Again, it's not for you or a God in the sky to judge. Here's something. GOP Texas lawmaker introduces a bill to allow the death penalty for women who have abortions. How crazy is that? A Republican lawmaker in Texas has introduced a bill that would allow the death penalty for women who have abortions. And this is just disgusting, being completely against women's rights to choose. That's horrible. But not only that specifically shows, they try and pretend that they're so pro-life, right? Apparently it's all about pro-life. Yet this bill would be causing death through the death penalty. So you can't really say you're pro-life when you're instituting the death penalty. How do you justify that? So as you can see, none of this is really about pro-life. What it is, it's either just conserving the old religious ways of doing things, or it's the wanting to control women. And I really shouldn't say or, it's both. It really is both. It's about conserving the old religious ways of doing things and wanting to control the autonomy of women. Because this is a patriarchal society based on old religious laws, patriarchal laws, and they fear the power and autonomy of women. They find it threatening. And this is, of course, because they have a very unintegrated mirror. This is why we talk about why it's so important to integrate the mirror self. Because if you don't have a well-integrated mirror self, you start mirror projecting. And since you fear your inner opposite, and for conservative men, it's their inner feminine, then they will project and fear and try and control the women around them. And then so now we have this society that is within its patriarchal institutions is trying to limit women because of their own unintegrated psyches and an old conservative religious past that they want to preserve and conserve. That's why they are conservatives. They're all about preserving and conserving the past, never looking to the future. And so we can really see here the damage that these systems do. And again, people wonder, why do you talk about this stuff? Why do you talk about religion so much? Because you guys I mean, I know you guys understand, but the vast majority of the world doesn't understand how damaging this is. And even if it isn't explicit, even if it isn't out there for the world to see, this is behind the scenes influencing the laws that control the world. And so we need to jettison these old mainstream religious ideas that are limiting people's freedoms, that are limiting the expression, the LGBT community, women's rights. Racism is blatant everywhere. Sexism is everywhere. Discrimination in general is everywhere. And we need to do something about it. And raising awareness is what I want to put out there. And so that's why I talk about this stuff. It's incredibly important. I know we have a lot of fun with the drunk Bible readings and stuff, and they are a lot of fun. And you know, we do a lot of fun stuff like this because it is fun. But there's a point to it. There's a very powerful reason, and that reason is to show the world how these systems are very damaging. And I want to be very clear that I have no problem with religion when it is interpreted as metaphorical and the discriminatory, hateful practices are removed. So I want to make that very clear. I'm specifically against literalist mainstream religion that has these hateful elements to it. If you want to do certain rituals, and if you want to wear certain types of clothing, and you want to have certain types of stories and whatnot, that's totally fine. I don't care about that. That's fine. That's totally fine. But it's when you take these stories to be literal, and you don't remove the hateful practices within it, then that's when there's a problem. Then that's when you have things like the Catholic Church saying same-sexual unions are wrong, and God does not bless sin, and that, you know, marriage is only for a man and a woman to procreate. So again, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. You know, there is so much hatred in these supposed holy books. So again, you want to interpret these as just stories, just metaphors? That's fine, as long as you get rid of the hateful stuff too. But if you start taking this as literal, and you start limiting the power of the people, that's when I have a problem. And that's the problem that we have today. And that's the problem that we need to fix. So all these religions need major overhauls and major updates so that we can get rid of the underlying discrimination, the underlying hate. And some of it's not even underlying, it's just blatant. You know, you could just, you just open a Bible and point to a verse, you'll probably find something crazy, you know. It's pretty much everywhere. So that's why raising awareness about that is so important to me. And why we need to create a world where women have the right to choose, where the LGBT community is free to love whoever they want, and where people are free to explore themselves, their minds, and their world. Again, these aren't crazy and radical ideas, but this is such of a prison planet that it seems like they're crazy and radical ideas. And this world is such an insane asylum that people look at us like we're crazy. When our ideas are not crazy, they should be obvious. It should be common sense. But this world is a madhouse. It's a mind divided against itself. And this is where we have to come in and clean up the mess. And that's why we need a new world, not based on old religious ideas that want to limit you and make you a slave to a God in the sky, but a world led by logic and reason that is about actualizing your potential and becoming God. So that instead of having a prison planet with a world of slaves, we can create the kingdom of God on earth, which is our kingdom, made in our image, and a society of the divine, where each and every citizen has become actualized and empowered to apotheosis, to godhood. That's the kind of world that we must build and replace with this, and replace the shit show that we have today. Erdem says, don't get me wrong, I don't want to insult you or anything negative, but what's the evidence that your beliefs are true and the rest is just a bunch of lies? Check out my videos, my friend. So the whole point is that basically, look, you have 3 different ways of looking at the world. You have mainstream religion, which is faith. You have scientific materialism, which is empiricism, based on physical evidence. And then you have our system, which is Hyperianism, which is rationalism based on logic and reason. And most people are completely unaware of this. Third choice. They think that there's only religion and faith or science and empiricism. But no, there is the third choice, which is Hyperianism, which is logic and reason. Rationalism. So, whereas religion believes things based on faith and what a book tells them, and just because it feels right, and science believes things based on what their physical senses show them, the knowledge of Hyperianism is based on certain mathematical deductive truths. Reason, rationalism, truths, necessary truths of reason, truths based on the principle of sufficient reason. So where religion is belief in faith, science is based on sensory experiments, Hyperianism is based on the deductive laws of mathematics. So it really comes to, what are you going to choose? What are you going to go with? Are you going to go with faith and religion and just believing it because, well, faith is belief for no reason. So you're just going to believe it because your heart tells you it's true and you feel the Holy Spirit in your heart. Are you going to go with that? Or are you going to go with scientific materialism based on what the physical senses show you? Or are you going to go with logic and reason and what mathematics says to be true? And remember, mathematics reaches beyond what the senses can show. It goes to the necessary truths of reason. So you just have to pick what you're going to go with. Are you going to go with emotions and faith? Are you going to go with the senses and experiment? Or are you going to go with the mind and reason? You have to make a choice in this life. You have to make a choice in this life. And the scientific paradigm has failed. The scientific paradigm has met its limitations, quite clearly over 100 years ago now with the advent of quantum mechanics. Quantum mechanics is the end of the line for scientific materialism because sensory experiments can no longer penetrate. Because once you get into the realm of quantum mechanics and we're talking about things like the quantum mechanical wave function, these are no longer physical things. They are mathematical entities. And they are non-physical. And so that's the end of the road for empirical science. We require a new paradigm shift. Pope looking good! Thanks to everyone who supported today. You have been immortalized upon the Pope.